subscribe.
The Angry Ops Guy Podcast.
I'm the angry ops guy, hanging by a thread, living on Prozac, the meds from my head, jaded and burned out, ADHD and overdrive, manage your life, running on a wire, I love it, I hate it, I'm past repair, the angry ops guy, just another day.
Welcome back to the Angry Ops Guy podcast. Ops Mike here, and I have another guest. That's the theme of season 2, but this is a fun one because I had to force her to come on the podcast. She did not want to, like many of the guests that I approach, but this one definitely didn't want to. But what's important, why I bullied her to come on, is I have Laurie McCullagh of WSI Montreal, who I've said on numerous podcasts as I reflect on my history and my friends. Her and her business partner and life partner, Chris Murray, are two of my oldest friends. And just to set it up, I'm not saying that they're old. I'm saying old as in they are my first friends outside of my agency owner, Peter Cisnewski, that I met in WSI. I built a relationship with working with them on projects, and they are truly two of my best friends in the WSI. They're the people I cannot wait to see when we get together a couple of times a year, and she is here, begrudgingly, but she's here. So, Laurie, how are you?
I am great, and thank you very much for that intro. And yes, one of your oldest, your bestest, but that's okay. I'm happy to be here, Mike.
Hey, experience matters in a world where everybody thinks they know what you're doing, and you have a lot of experience. Because what many people don't know is, Laurie and Chris aren't ones at this stage of their agency to be so much on camera and involved as past years. Like many of the agencies that have longer tenure, they're knee deep focusing on their own stuff in Montreal. But Chris and Laurie's WSI Montreal franchise has been in business now into their 26th year. My agency, that's owned by Peter Cisnewski, and Chris and Laurie's agency are just a couple of months apart. So that puts Chris and Laurie like into the early months of the year 2000. In the sense of how long. So they are one of the mainstays in tenured agencies like ours that have survived, persevered, and have evolved to stay relevant in our marketplaces, which is such an accomplishment that you were recognized for at the last convention, in the sense of the 25-year anniversary. But let's just start there before we get into more about who you are and so on, because there's such an interesting dynamic between you and Chris. And the bag of worms of working with your life partner and not being able to turn that off. I want to focus on that too. But the journey, again, to make you laugh because you hate when I do this, but in the year 2000, I was in high school. And
Okay.
and you were navigating what digital marketing and web development in the internet was there. And now looking at it 26 years later, it's a very different landscape than what you came into. But it's such a story, right, of just the changes. So, and like many of my guests, I really want to just start with tell us about that story because, again, unless people come to convention or come to regional meetings, they may not know you guys as well as they think they do. So tell us a little bit about how it started and just your biggest insights of how it's changed over the years before we get into some specific topics, if you don't mind.
Oh my goodness, it has changed so much technology-wise. It is completely different. And, I think in the last 2-3 years, we've been talking a lot about the changes just having to do with AI. Well, take a step back 26 years ago. The internet was barely in existence. When we got into it, Chris was barely building websites on his own and using emails. And, he saw the power of some of these new forms of communication. And he was the one who, got me into the idea of starting our own business. And, he had many other ideas over the years, or many different ideas over the years. And I'm like, nah, no, not a good idea, not a good idea. But somehow this idea of WSI intrigued me. and we jumped in after me having a baby and managing that whole new dynamic and everything. And it's been quite a run. So many things have changed over the year, technology wise. We started in the dot-com bust.
Yeah.
So that wasn't easy. And starting out in a new business, obviously, there's lots of learning to be had in and of itself, just technology wise. Learning sales, right? When you're starting a new business, it was new for both of us. I think we did fairly well getting to know people. For us, dealing with our clients, dealing with prospective clients, we've always been a very honest and forthright. We want to make sure that we deliver what we say we're going to deliver. Over the years, we've had many, many different really good clients that we've always loved doing business with, and we still have clients from 25 years ago.
And that's just unreal. We have a couple, and some of them have retired or closed up just as, like anything, father time doesn't slow down. But that was always something Peter was so proud of, as well as when he could say to new clients, new prospects, like we've had ex clients for 20 years, 15 years, 25 years. And they
Yeah,
go, really?
yeah,
Because, like you said, it's not about performance at that part. It's a relationship of trust. It's a partnership of help me evolve while you evolve, keep me up to date on what's important as you're figuring it out. And those are the best clients to work with, because you can navigate the ebbs and flows of data and performance and compliance and everything else, but the trust is there, and you're the first phone call. And that's a testament to how you run the agency, because if you have clients like that, which again, I know you quite well, that's one thing Chris, for example, is very proud of, and saying, like, a lot of your client base is very tenured, which means that they don't look somewhere else just because a bad month, a bad week, a delay on a project. It's the trust is explicitly with you and your team.
absolutely. We very much do value those partnerships, and and in turn, I think that's the way our clients think about us as well. And that's a really good feeling, but you always have to deliver.
Always have to deliver, but also I think just, you and I, or our agencies, are so proud of that milestone of 25 years. Like, got to understand, to other people listening, that that's not common in agency life. You see so many agencies crash and burn. You see so many economic situations happen where agencies can't sustain. But 25 years, a quarter of a what's it? It's a quarter of a century. Like, it's a long time. And I think smart business owners that do their due diligence in their local markets, they do evaluate that, because there are so many agencies out there. We talk about it a lot in the podcast. It's a very commoditized industry, unfortunately. But that goes a long way with people, because if they know that you can survive and persevere and you have that longevity, that outweighs immediate success and gloating and whatnot, because you've been able to anchor through economic recessions, dot-com busts, now the AI boom that's changing everything again. But that shows sustainability, which I think when people want to spend thousands of dollars a month trusting you to guide them through marketing, which is volatile, I think that's a big decision maker for the smart ones versus the ones that are looking for cost effective or just quick solutions.
Absolutely. Yep. And particularly, you know, in Quebec, we have even more political unrest at times over the years as well. And that comes into the economy and those economic challenges over the years as well. So that too has come into play over the years. The moment that people start talking about referendums for Quebec leaving Canada, is like, oh, everybody starts pulling the strings in and just putting things on hold. Let's see what happens. Everything turns out well over the years, but it's another challenge that we have being part of Canada.
Well, you guys should be very proud of that milestone, and I hope, I know you won't be doing another 25 years of this, because if you are,
I
you
hope
didn't
not.
get to enjoy your. I might have to do 25 more years, but your window's shorter than mine. But that's a huge achievement, and I'm so pleased for you both. And how, again, because I've been saying recently, for some of the episodes we've dropped with Cynthia, and so forth, is, I just hit a milestone at 17 years, which I'm proud of. But I've known you that entire journey. And that's why I say, like, I've known you guys literally since roughly year one or year two. And I can't say that for anybody else. And there's not many of those great people from that time left. And, various circumstances, retirement, selling their agencies, succession plans and whatnot. But you guys have kind of been my foundational mainstays of who can I reach out to for bilingual stuff. We've done that numerous times. Like, always laugh with Laurie because I'll just send her like, "Hey, Laurie, I need this translation of these four words." This is before things like DeepL came out and whatever and so forth. By the way, anybody that needs a quick translation tool, DeepL, DEEPL.com, brilliant.
A
Um,
tool.
awesome tool. But before that, I had a different translator, and it wasn't Google Translate. It was Laurie McCullagh.
Yeah.
I literally email her in the old days, or I'd call her. This is going back how far we go back, and it'd be like I'd call her and say, "Hey, Mike, what's going on?" I'm like, can you translate this for me? She'll send me an email because you don't understand what I'm saying to you on the phone. But you used to be my translator because at those days we had some clients that were bilingual. Obviously, we don't work that like you or Mark Jameson and WSI Ottawa, where the bilingual is much more necessary. But you've been that support system because I can't understand anything other than how to go to the bathroom, which was the only thing I learned in elementary school. That's why I barely got out of French. So I wouldn't be good coming into WSI Montreal as a hire because I wouldn't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah. And that's, I think back to when we first started with WSI, the language issue was always a challenge in Quebec. So while WSI had, different solutions, initially, there was never anything that was available in French. So we often had to just find our own solutions, do our own thing, and that's perhaps why we've very much just done it many things on our own. Yes, we have a network out there of suppliers, of which we do use different suppliers for some things, but we've always been self-sufficient. We have an in-house team, and I've got an awesome team that, whether it's development or SEO and now AI SEO, we've always done it. So we've always dug in there and had to be on the top cutting edge of technology, if you would. So that's really why, is because we did it from the beginning and we've just continued along that way.
So you opened up a very interesting can of worms. It was a topic I had here just to see where we would chat, but you just mentioned the two languages, and especially in Canada, obviously, primarily Quebec, bilingual. Areas of Ontario but need the bilingual. Like I said, Mark Jameson with WSI Ottawa, as I call it, WSI Strategies, has that component to them as well. But other areas of Canada and respectfully the United States don't have that need. Obviously, you see in Latin America with the need for Spanish, obviously Europe with other languages, but you have a very interesting and kind of unique thing that you just mentioned is everything you have to do there has to be in two languages. So whether it's your reflection as to the early years of not having those resources or how to navigate which needed self-sufficiency to do it, but now even to keep up with, ultimately you have to do everything twice. I'm saying that, but it's the truth. It's like
Totally.
website, two languages, SEO, two languages, paid advertising, two languages. So everything, in a sense, if you want to simplify, is doubled for you guys.
Graphics?
And thank you. And graphics, everything, even something as simple as meta tags has to be two languages. Keyword research has to be two languages,
Yep.
and they're different.
They're
Um,
very different, and we often, and thankfully we have bilingual staff as well. So we come together and we sometimes talk about these two languages, and it's not a direct translation. This word in English, this word in French. The nuance in English and in French is completely different sometimes. So it's always a little bit of a push and um, I don't know. It's always not easy to find just the right terminology, but it's one of our strengths because we can deal with both. We can service both language sets. So it's just something that we've started from the get go.
So with the language piece, like what do you identify? Because what's interesting about the dynamic between you and Chris being partners at the business is Chris is very much the business development, and he's very much a strategic lead. He very much likes keyword research, building strategy, He's very, very good at that stuff, loves to dig into numbers.
Loves
Your
it.
side is I just call you're the integrator. You're operations manager. Everything he sells goes through your department and your team to do. So with that kind of dynamic, and what have you learned over the years in being having to be self-sufficient, but like maybe in the journey of WSI Montreal, what were some of the biggest headaches of combating the need for bilingualism? And what are some of the things that you feel now in the agency in its 26th year you're very proficient at to make that easier versus in a process to execute versus what limitations in technology, language, translations, and anything else, and analytical data even in past years?
Yeah, I mean, the whole process is a very phased process, right? And every step along the way, you always have to be cognizant of those two languages, from the keyword research to deciding which ones we're going to be going with. And sometimes they're not, again, the keywords that we're focusing in on in one language may not be exactly the same, but then you have a bilingual site, so it is, the same pages that have to coexist. We've come across this in the last little while, because there has been a lot of different terminology that don't necessarily match, but we still have to make it all marry between the two languages. But process is, it's a phase process. You have to, we talked about graphics along the way. Well, you're going to develop the whole homepage design, the look and feel. But when you're doing that in English, you have to remember that the design, when it comes to French, you need more space because French language is more wordy. So I always count on at least 20% extra space for the words. So you have to be very mindful. And again, it's just a phased approach. You get everything done, let's say in English. That's typically, depending on the client, we typically start in English first. And then once that's all settled, we'll work towards the second language. So, but it is almost twice the amount of work. And
Yeah, and
that's,
that's why your price point's gonna be higher than the average WSI agency for a website development or a comprehensive SEO strategy because they people sit there, "Oh, that why is that so much more expensive?" It's literally almost double the amount of work. We're
yeah,
not
yeah,
talking 20% more, like you said. You're doing 2 cents of content development, 2 strategies. You hit on something great. I made that mistake in my younger years when we had just a selective couple of clients with bilingual needs, and we had engaged you for more of the translation stuff, but we could do the technical work. I'm talking just website development. But exactly that. You build this kick-ass website design, client loves it. You skin it, you build it, it looks great in English, and now it's time, whether you're using a multi-site in WordPress or using a translation plugin or whatever, and you start dropping in this content that I've contracted Laurie to do, and nothing's working. It's all broken. The buttons are wrapping to 2 lines, the sections and pods. So again, you almost have to be, if you will, as an operations manager, you have to be a visionary in the sense of understanding how you want to lay out things, just so you don't get that uh-oh moment 40% in the project where you're like, how do we fix this? Because that's a terrible situation to be in.
yeah. No, that's it. You have to bear that and be very forward thinking. I mean, the same thing goes when we started talking about all the responsive elements in a site. You know, at some point along the voyage, you have to remember that what it looks like on a full desktop site is going to look completely different on a mobile site. So you just gotta just always be looking ahead, and how is that going to look, if it's, having to slide in because it's responsive. So I think I'm good at that. Sometimes people say, well, you should do mobile first, and like, okay, call me old, but I still like to start with a desktop, but I definitely do bear in mind how is that going to look when we start talking about the responsive elements and dealing with all of those. So that's something that's obviously involved has evolved greatly over the years as well.
And also just to that point about, because where our I think our friendship and collaboration started was web development, because at the time that's what we were doing together.
Mhm.
Part of that too is how are you going to build the site? So WSI Montreal and WSI Commandix are very proficient and enjoy working in the WordPress ecosystem.
Yeah, and I
For
think we're
for the
good
most
at
part.
it, right?
Yes. Uh, Sorry,
We're
go ahead.
we're really good at it. We don't
Yeah.
just design pretty pictures and that we make sure that the code is lean, everything's optimized, everything looks professional. It's not a fly by night site. We really do take the time. We work with you on some of our designs. So we are very similar in some ways. So it's but
And
yeah,
and
to
And
your point,
with that being said, is like, because I'm identifying WordPress just as one of the CMSs, is you got to think also outside of the language and layout. But are we going to build this as a multi-site setup where we need more control to basically have two instances of WordPress within one, so that we can maximize something we need on French versus English, make sure that we can make it work in sync? Can we go with what we hope is, like a WPML with a WPML plugin, which really streamlines translation now more than ever in WordPress?
absolutely. Yeah.
And you were the ones, you especially, I believe. I don't know if David, your kick-ass production lead there. Shout out David if he listens. He
Hmm.
doesn't, because it's a chirp at him to listen, because I've been yelling at him for a year. That's okay.
He's
But if
awesome.
David does now, because he got a shout out, is just making sure that like, you guys taught me what WPML was, because I was frustrated with the translation site, because we knew multi-sites and that's what our developers were telling us to do, but it's a lot of work to build a multi-site. It gives you freedom, but if it's just language translations, then something like WPML in today's world is tremendous.
It is an
And
awesome tool, and that again is something that you learn out of necessity. We probably had used multi-sites a couple of times, or we might have inherited sites that had it, and it just for us didn't feel quite as good, quite as efficient as WPML. So
that's the
that's
key word.
always been our go-to, um, and we'll always put that on our clients' sites generally. And it's just an awesome tool, and that's something that if you're dealing with a client that has multi-language and needs, dealing with a company from Quebec, realize that they're going to have that experience. Whereas if you go to a big firm, dare I say in Toronto, who might not have some of those skills, and we've lived this as well. We have a couple of clients who we've inherited sites where they've cobbled together a site, some functionality with the French, but it was so limiting for our
Mhm.
clients that it totally tied their hands and they couldn't update it. They had this fabulous team of content writers and creators, but they couldn't do anything with the site. They say, oh, you could put in a sentence here, or way down at the bottom of the page. Well, no, that doesn't make any sense. You're developing a WordPress, you're developing it so that the client can manage it. That's what we bear in mind. We want to give our clients full access. Well, they're usually too busy, but that is our goal, is to provide sites that they have full capabilities to manage it if they have the time and the desire to do it.
And also for you guys, because ultimately the game for all of us is to move sites into recurring income streams, which is marketing.
Absolutely.
So if you don't think ahead on that, then someone like David or even Chris comes and says, "Well, how are we going to do this on the French side, but we don't need it on the English side?" You have to think those things through, because they're going to be different. Flexibility, while being lean. I love what you said about building something that's lean versus bulky, because you're right. You want it to be lean, but you still need to think like, okay, I may need some extra plugins on the French side. I need flexibility. Like Christ, even database and coding, you have so much accents and so forth in your language on the French side, that if you don't import or you don't set things up correctly, then all of a sudden those characters aren't going to format correctly. And then the first right away, the client's like, why are all these broken symbols everywhere? But it could simply be a database encoding. So you've really got to think to make sure this, again, this is not just an English site where drop it in, put some pages in a post, hooray, we're done. everything has to be thought of between two languages, but the different needs. And we've just scratched the surface on a couple of those.
Yeah.
But if you ever want a masterclass of understanding bilingual web development and marketing strategy, you definitely got to go to convention and have a drink and a small session with Chris and Laurie, because again, they have seen that evolve in the sense of what they need to do, but the efficiencies. And I love what you said as we put a pin in this first topic. But you said is you've had to be self-sufficient, because it wasn't because WSI failed you, or it wasn't necessary at that time because it wasn't so common. WSI was much smaller back then than it is now. There is so much more worldwide agency owners now in bilingual countries, in countries of different languages, and the resources are so much powerful now compared to back in the day. But what's cool about you guys are innovators. You had to figure out how to do it. You had to figure out how to leverage developer in the old days and how to make sure you could get bilingual. You had to
Yes.
figure out how other platforms. I remember you telling us, oh, David's found a way with Chris to modify the header so that our language switching will be proper. Like, you don't have to do those things these days, but even 5-8 years ago, you had to. So technology has evolved so much, but those experiences make you guys better now. And again, that's the value proposition when you're saying it's going to be doubled in a Toronto agency. We got to do it this much more work. We got to do this much more planning. But when you can speak intelligently like that, the client's not sitting there worrying about the numbers. They're saying these people know what they're doing. And that's really a unique selling proposition for you in that Quebec marketplace.
Yeah, we definitely had to go through some pain at the beginning. I think back to you mentioned Voliper. Whether it's Voliper, whether it's whatever supplier. I think back to the struggles that we had to, again, talk about layout for that second language, and the back and forth, back and forth. It was trying. So that, again, another reason why we just do it ourselves. We know how to play the
You
game.
need control.
Yep.
It's too hard to articulate that to somewhere else when and again, the market. And one more thing I just want to say about the bilingual. We could talk forever about this, even though I can't say 3 words in French other than "Est-ce que je peux aller aux toilettes," which I think still stands. That's the way I got out of class in high school, so I could go away and go raid the vending machine for things I shouldn't be eating. No joke. Like, I just tried to get out as much as I couldn't understand it. But the bilingual piece, um, that I was mentioning is you with the bilingual also in Quebec. One thing you taught me is just because the way Laurie translates French or a French copywriter translates doesn't necessarily resonate with the customer. And me and you battled this on a customer a handful of years ago where I needed bilingual translations, and you have a wonderful lady, and so forth. And I've used her numerous times through the years, but the client being fully bilingual and in Quebec was like, does this person even know how to translate French? And I'm coming back to you, not hot, but I'm like, what do I do here? And you're like, this is perfectly so. But what you taught me, and I'm not trying to take away from your voice, is different areas of Quebec phonetically or in language, because you mentioned there could be different ways to articulate language in French, whereas like Peter says it all the time with his background being Polish. He goes, let me think about how this would be connected, because there's 3 different ways you can use this word, but that can resonate incorrectly with clients, even just on I think you said like Quebec City versus Montreal, the language might be different on how they expect to read it, which you have to also understand there. So it's not even just, well, just translate the French. You're also looking at French and how different areas of the province would utilize it or articulate themselves in writing. Am I right
Yeah.
still by that?
No, I think that's valid. And I can confidently say if I give a task to 3, 4 different translators, they will all do something a little bit different.
Really?
So I'm confident if a client comes back to me and says, "Well, I don't like that translation." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's look at this. Well, obviously they're usually in touch. I'm not the in-between person on this part of the project. But they'll talk about it, and is there a specific tone that we're not hitting, or is it it could be terminology. We have a lot of manufacturing clients, obviously, that sometimes it's more technical. So that's not easy sometimes, right? You're not talking about fluff topics. It can be more involved. You know, we have translators here that are very technical oriented. And while they're technical oriented, maybe they're not as much marketing oriented. So it's always a challenge, you know, which translator am I going to put in front of, you know, client X, Y, and Z? And we do have several, or I should say, we used to have several translators, all, you know, within our purview. Which and that in and of itself now is changing as well.
How
Translators are
so?
getting out of the business
Are they?
because of AI.
And is it because of those challenges? Is it just technology is like in the copywriting sector where a lot of good copywriters have had to change to be AI engineers to execute copywriting because everybody thinks that now you just type a prompt and a great piece of content goes. But like, what are you seeing and why that's changing in your marketplace?
Translators are getting out of the business because people they feel that they can go on to DeepL, ChatGPT, Claude, and do their translations online, which I have to say, there's some really good translation tools out there now. And how you ask, if you're very specific, I'd like to have a French Canadian tone to the whole translation. It's pretty good. And different tools will provide different results, which, you know, we're learning. We're learning to adapt to that as well. You still have to have your eyes on. Just like anything having to do with AI output, you still have to, you know, read everything through. But that's especially true with translation.
So interesting though, is like you said, you can use AI tools now or even something like Claude or Chat GPT and literally say, like, I'm going to give you an English piece of content. I need this to be translated into French Canadian specific to Montreal consumers. Please help me. And 70% of it is there in front of you. And then again, based on your experience and bilingualisms, or you and Chris, you're able then to read it and then see the different phonetics of, oh, we don't say that, we say it. But to your point is, you're not dependent on that person because people are different. That's the thing is people are different, right? They how they interpret things, how they write things, and content writing was always subjective because you're dealing with a personality. But that is the one nice thing. Not that I don't want to see anybody lose their job because of technology, because people need to make a living. But if the technology can put a better output and the client says, Laurie, I don't know what you did here, but you told me you're going to put a kick-ass piece of manufacturing content together and this is accurate, well done. That's the stickiness that we want with customers because they expect you to produce a kick-ass product. Not like I said about that one thing, and that was completely subjective. It was nothing wrong with the French translator, but it was like, does this person even know what French Canadian language is? Because that was the interpretation of that person, which may have just wanted it articulated a different way. But like you said, you know, um, nuances of it. So it's God Christ, we're only 30 minutes chatting here, and I'm exhausted just thinking about two languages. But this is what you live and breathe every day.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very impressive, and shout out to Latin America and, certain areas of Europe where we have, WSI colleagues that have to combat different languages and so on because it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is. Everybody comes and says, "Oh, you know, I want you to build me a website and a marketing strategy, and I need it in 3 languages." Or, "No, no problem." And they sell, like, multi languages for $400, and you're like, you don't understand. So if you learned anything about this last little piece with Laurie is charge your value for this because you are doing more work. And if a customer doesn't understand that, doesn't believe in it, or is ignorant to it, then they're probably not a good fit if you need to build something with multi languages because there truly is more work. It's not just, oh, I want this in Cantonese. Yeah, there are tools like that that you can go get and they will just flip the thing, but they're not
exactly.
proper. You
Well,
have to
that's
refine
true.
and improve.
But for someone, let's say you're dealing with a smaller business or someone just starting out in business, there are those tools, you know, such as the G Translate that you can literally plug in, turn on, pay an annual fee, very reasonable rate. At least it'll give you the foundation of a translation, but then you can always go in and fine tune it to make sure that it's 100% accurate. So that too is, you know, something that, you know, we have looked at and have integrated on a few client sites that perhaps they don't have the budget to do a full translation or what have you. And not only the translation, but the development time, right? Because
Yes.
it's this sometimes will just alleviate reconstructing the second half or the third or whatever language this makes it real easy. So that's a good tool as well.
So there's 3 tools there. I love sharing kind of, things that people can take away. So like we were just saying, if you're looking for a quick solution and it aligns with the customer, that they're not so finicky on language, they don't have the budget to do a full, 2 sites in one concept, G-Translate is a really good tool to go explore. You literally integrate it with a script. It gives you the language flippers, and you can select from numerous languages. And then if you pay for the subscription, you have the ability to kind of modify and improve language in the back end and how it's served to your site. So that's a great tool for more economical multi-language.
Exactly.
We mentioned if you're just looking for translation abilities for messaging, subject lines, paragraphs, Deepl, DEEPL.com, a wonderful tool. Lori
Mhm.
introduced that to me a handful of years ago, and it blew my mind. Basically, she found it so she could tell me to go away and stop bothering her to translate things because I was bothering her. And then the third one that we said is if you're in the WordPress environment, which many of us are, depending on needs, um, and what we were saying, WPML is probably one of the best translation plugins out there. It's a paid plugin. It has lots of extensions and add-ons to do more things. It's a really, really good tool, not hard to set up. And gives you and your customers a really easy way of flipping between the languages without bastardizing the core work that's been done. But the real key takeaway here is not the tools; it is the planning. And I think that's really what Laurie's tried to nail down here is you have to think more in a bilingual, multi-language website of where am I going? How am I laying it out? How is it going to fit? And then allowing your dev team not to say, well, you did a great job on the English, but now this is a garbage on the French. So there's a lot more planning versus just getting into design or sitemap. You've got to think these things. Even we didn't even talk about like navigation. We build navigations and we build a sitemap saying, services, roofing installs, new roofs, flat roofs. But then the language changes, and all of a sudden your navigation is 3 times longer in width, and it's breaking and so on. Like you've got to think about everywhere there's going to be language. Like Laurie said, budget for somewhere between 25 to 35% more room you're going to need just in planning, knowing that the language is longer. And newer people don't assess that, and rightfully so. But that's a major takeaway if this is an area you're struggling. And again, reach out on Work Vivo or when you come and see Laurie and Chris at regionals or a convention on those things because they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Let's flip gears for a moment because one thing I wanted to talk about before we hopefully get into some fun stories about our history because that's the most fun of being friends with you and Chris, and you are truly my friends, not just my colleagues. But you guys having such a successful, sustainable agency in Quebec and out of Montreal area is you are very big in your local community. Um, you do a lot of business and a lot of networking on the West Island where you're based out of, and between Chamber of Commerce, other networking initiatives, and so forth. Also, you had shared with me, and I know this, but you're actually the president of the board of your Chamber of Commerce, so you're very integrated into that, and you've been a long time. Um, Knowing that networking, no matter what size and scale it is, Chamber of Commerce, a lot of newer ICs and mature ones get into BNI networking as a great way to get your rhythm and cadence and people and so forth. But it literally fuels your business. Um, tell us about that because everybody is looking for the best opportunities, and we know that SEO is very hard for digital marketers. Paid advertising is very expensive based on the competitiveness, but networking is a very strong referral channel. So tell us about that for WSI Montreal, but also your role here because you're the boss, Miss Prez. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, we from day one, we definitely got involved with the chamber, so I can say that we've been part of the West Island Chamber of Commerce for 26 years now as well. I think
Wow.
both Chris and I remember vividly that first meeting that we went to, and since then, we are very active. We go to the networking sessions, the learning sessions, the big awards ceremony. It's a very unique. The West Island is a very I'll call it an insulated community, a very bilingual community. And one of the benefits of being part of this chamber is the fact that it is so bilingual, which is an awesome thing. Our, board meetings that we have on a regular basis. a bilingual conversation is had, back and forth. It's very, very unique, I think, in Montreal, where there's so much both English, French that happens, and what everybody enjoys about being part of that chamber is you have both languages. Most people are bilingual. So networking for us is a way for us to meet new people. It's a way for us to connect with people that we've known for quite some time. It allows us to see some of the clients. We have many clients within the chamber. So it's a touch point. And inevitably, it's a touch point where you're chatting with, let's say, a client and, perhaps a prospective client, standing next to him or her. So it's a conversation starter, right? And because we often will deal with clients for many years, that's what the message that gets across is, oh, they're awesome. And we're so pleased, and it's such a feel good session because we get to see these people that we've dealt with for quite some time, and meet new people, and share. Obviously you get to practice your elevator pitch and what's new, and especially in our business, especially with AI coming down the pipe, everybody's asking about it. The AI SEO nowadays, how are things evolving for the new technology? The fact that our clients, have been dealing with us for so many years for SEO, they're starting to ask, what else is there that needs to be done? So it's an opportunity for us to get in front of them as well, and talk about some of these new elements that have come into play now to be found to have more visibility within the AI search engines.
How long again, I knew that you have been part of the chamber for a long time. Didn't know how long in the sense of right from the beginning, but this president, a title that you've adopted for whether it's term or not, how long have you been part of that leadership of the chamber, or is this a new endeavor for you to say, been here a long time, time to put my flair on it for however long they want me. But how long have you been doing that piece? Because like you need a more to do being an operations manager.
Exactly. Yes. I had an hour spare time. I said, why not? Let's get into it. I've been on the board now for probably about 8 years, and I stepped into the presidency about a year and a half ago or so. So it's a going concern. It's a growing chamber. When COVID happened, the dreaded COVID, I think all the chambers took a hit, and networking kind of died off. And you've had Zoom meetings for networking meetings, and not as effective. You don't get to know people as much. While Zoom is a wonderful tool for meetings sort of on the fly and reaching out, not having that one-on-one meeting as like we used to do as often, it's changed the dynamic of some of the relationships. So Chris and I still like to go and walk the floor and see what's happening on that manufacturing space, and it's so interesting to see some of the operations that are out there within our Montreal community or what have you. It's again, because it's manufacturing, we find it very interesting. So many different types of operations. So, getting back to the chamber, having those meetings to me is very meaningful. As I say, it's a way to get in front of those clients, potential clients. It's just a good way to get your message out there.
Well, cheers to you for doing that. I know how proud you guys are of being part of that chamber. You speak about it a lot when we have a chance to connect monthly. And there's always been passion between you and Chris. And again, the key insight for people is again, everybody is struggling no matter where you are in the journey of your agency, but get into networking groups.
Absolutely.
What Laurie said there, the elevator pitch, BNI is notorious for that, but you need to work on your craft. And when you have 60 seconds to get out what this week's theme is, or what you're trying to pitch, or what you're trying to advise, you get better and better with repetition and change, but the same people supporting you. and so forth. So, whether you're struggling with, I'm a great integrator, but now I'm an owner of franchise and I don't speak well. Get into a networking chapter.
Yeah.
You work your craft,
Yeah.
get that confidence, but you're building a network. You're building, and talk about dating ourselves, Rolodex. You're building a Rolodex of people that trust you. Who do you know, and so forth. And that spirals into almost the spider web of more and more opportunities, because each and one of those person has hundreds of contacts, and something you say in those meetings resonates with one person and it gets viral. And then again, we want as agencies feeder systems, and the best lead generation for any agency, I don't care what anybody says, is referrals. It still is. It's the
Absolutely.
like, we just did something, you and I together, very, very lightly on Work Vivo, our WSI platform, where one of our colleagues reached out and just said, "Who is bilingual and French Canadian? I have an opportunity for them." And I'm on Work Vivo because apparently I don't work, and I'm just like, "Go talk to Chris and Laurie." And then Chris jumped in and said, "Send me an email, whatever." But the point being is who do you know? And that's the same approach, because now that IC can sit there and say, I know someone who's directly in home base in Montreal. They have been there 25 years and they're going to be take care right away. That opportunity, even if it doesn't materialize, the trust has been passed to you guys versus just I had to go find somebody. And that's so powerful, again, in a saturated industry where everybody says they can do digital marketing and web development.
It's a warmer lead, right? And
There you
I
go.
was going to say there's different types of networking. Obviously, there's the chambers, which are usually in larger settings and larger events and that sort of thing. But there's also different types of networking. Both Chris and I are part of different smaller networking groups, and always have been. Um, we have a group called Action Plus, who I've been part of again probably for about 25 years. And the people that are part of this group, we see each other every couple of weeks, and we share, what's new, what's going on, what sometimes it's business, topics, learning from each other. So it's a real trust factor going on within that group of people that are very active. And because we get to know each other really well, it is so easy to pass on a referral. Again, that's a really warm lead. If I'm referring you, it's because I know this guy really well or her really well, and I'm happy to, share this as a lead, somebody that you would do well doing business with.
Always easier to work a warm opportunity than someone in cold. You don't have to, you have to prove yourself, but you don't have to prove yourself, because that person's already passed the baton, at least in trust, which is how a lot of people, like, that's the way I am. I'm doing renovations here at the house right now for the bathrooms. Went to my next door neighbor, who's one of my best buddies, but he works at CIBC. He's got a whole network of contacts and people. He goes, go talk to this guy. I didn't even go get other quotes because he passed the trust thing. I know this guy. He's a good guy. He's going to do it correctly. That's the way business works. It's still a handshake business, even though it's not a handshake business like the old days. But it's very important to build that trust, and networking groups, no matter size and scale, really allow that. But more importantly, allows you to hone your craft. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be this stage presence of, wow, you speak great. Fumble, but you're going to work at it, and you're going to work at it every week or every month, and you're going to get a cadence, and you're going to get more comfortable. And then all of a sudden it's going to come out on your virtual meetings. It's going to come out in your presentations. So you got to work at it. And networking is a great safe space to do that, with people that, trust you because they accepted you into their chapter or their network.
Absolutely. And it allows you that space to see what resonates with those people as well.
Certainly. Okay. Well, I want to have some fun with you, with some questions and whatever stories we think are acceptable. Because again, we don't have any toilet humor like Jack Porter Smith, and we'll stay away from that. But um, you are you have a very interesting dynamic, because you and Chris, and as much as you have, I hope I'm saying this correct, kept your maiden name, versus Chris is obviously Chris Murray. You're like, I didn't know this at the beginning. I thought it until I met you, and then it clicked. But you're also life partners. And that's a very interesting dynamic, because we all know when we leave work, wherever that is, at an office or your desk, and you want to turn it off. But you guys, for example, drive to the office and come back together and you're having supper together. So the first question for humor, but also I think is interesting because there's a story in itself of, how do you not kill each other every day? Because you're different. Chris is an absolute pain in the ass. You're not. And I'm sure he's in the background. You can hear me. He's going to come in the background and give me the middle finger sooner or later. Love you, Chris. But so the question is twofold. How have you figured out over the 25 years to successfully work with each other intimately? Because that's really, it's important because you divide and conquer that with what you're good at. But number two, how have you not divorced him and you're being married? So it's twofold. One work, one personal.
It's not easy sometimes, but as you say, divide and conquer. We each have, our strengths, if you would. Chris is the number cruncher in terms of the data. He loves data. He's imparted that information to my son now as well. But he loves digging into the details of, who is who is looking for that type of product or that service. So he's awesome at that and can articulate this is probably the best strategy moving forward, but then he'll hand that over to myself and our team, and we'll try to make that come to fruition. So it's we each have our areas, and it's not easy. Sometimes it's, I mean, that we're always so busy. Chris is saying we need to sit down, we need to focus in on our business. I realize that, but it's sometimes very hard to do, right? Because you're always trying to get that website off and launched and that sort of thing. So that's something that is not an easy thing. You want to keep the peace. You want to try and you know work together, but it's not always easy.
And with that being said, is it fair to say, because I talk a lot about EOS here, and it is an important aspect of the WSI system, if agencies choose to adopt, is it fair to say that Chris is the visionary and you're the integrator? At least how I see you. You think that's a fair assessment of you two in the sense of your personalities and focal points, and that's why, like the book says, why you can complement each other? Because if you were both visionaries with ideas, you'd butt heads even more.
Yes,
And
exactly.
if he was in your department every day telling you how to integrate, you would be throwing a pan at him. But is that kind of, you established that early on, knowing where your skills were and where the line crosses? Because that's the only way it can work. No different than me and Peter. There's clear lines of where we know we're good at and where we complement each other. And now you've just amplified even more in the sense of this
Yeah.
is my partner.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And, Chris is very good to, when he hands things off, I think he knows that we can take care of things and it will get done. Things always take a little bit longer. You and I know, when it comes to operation, that things do take longer than, one would ever expect, or approvals or timelines and all of that sort of thing, but it will get done.
Just depends on when the client wakes up and approves the design that's been sitting in their hopper for 10 months, right? It's, you're sitting there going, Chris is like, why the hell isn't this into marketing yet? Well, can't do anything if the client doesn't care. So again, there's a balance, but the clear thing is know your lane.
Yes.
And again, going back to EOS, you have to have a true integrator like Laurie, and you need to have a visionary like Chris. And that's where you can complement each other because they don't do the same thing and they can't do the same thing. And that's the successful marriage, if you will, that is needed to be able to combat the ebbs and flows of the departments. One is fulfillment, one is development, one is strategy, and they have to jive. But you need to identify because if you were the analytical mind and he was the thing, then maybe the roles would be reversed 25 years ago. But you also have to assess who you are and what you're good at so that you can complement each other. Because that's the other thing too. How many people do you talk to that say, oh, I work with my wife or work with my husband, but the dynamic is not good?
Yes.
Or just simply, I work with family. And then there's contention in the family because of stuff at work because they can't separate it. So, it can be very challenging to come home for supper and not turn it off
Yes.
because it's the commonality of your entire day versus oh, hi, honey. How was your day? Let's talk about it because I don't know anything about your day and let's get it off your chest. Whereas we just lived and breathed the war all day.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, pump the brakes. Let's go talk about something else.
Yes. Or it extends into the dog walking after dinner as well, of course.
Shout out that Chris and Lori have, because there's a theme here on my episodes that we love dogs. Everybody does, and I've got two, but they have a gorgeous golden retriever named Kaylee, sweet Kaylee girl. That if Murray was on here right now, she's an idiot, she's dumb, and I hate her and everything else. He doesn't at all. He's a clown. He loves that dog. But she knows how to push buttons, but she is a sweetheart. So I've always said to Lori, if Chris is finally saying that, the kids are out and now the other one's got to go, me and Miss are going to take her. We'll take her. It's fine.
She's a sweetheart as long as, you don't put a paper napkin on your
She likes
lap.
to eat napkins and other paper accessories that don't digest well into a dog, but she is a sweetheart. And what golden retriever have you met that's not a sweetheart? Like, they are the
Exactly.
best dogs in the world.
Yes.
So, all right, so that's why you haven't divorced Chris yet, is you just told him clearly this is the line in the sand and don't cross it. This is my ops. Um, Now, just maybe just transitioning, because I don't have questions and answers. I just wanted to be funny with Chris because Chris is Chris. Like, everybody, nobody knows this because, again, me and Chris don't banter like this in public, but I go at Chris all the time. Like, shut up, Murray, and da, 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 and he goes at me. I always say, I said in early episodes, like, Chris is like my older brother, like Eric Cook is. A little bit of a bully, a little bit of a mentor. I know if I need him, he's got my back. I know in a moment of weakness, he'll give me insights based on his age and experience, but we go at each other. Like, I invited him on here with you and he's like, nope, Lori will do it. And I'm like, you better come on for another one. I don't think he wants to do it because he just knows we're probably going to F this and F that on each other and it won't be constructive. But um, I want to turn into a story because I think it's fun. Is like the first couple. I started in WSI in 2009. Like I said, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, that I met Lori in 2010 because I had moved into project management. There was an opportunity to work on a project together and so forth. And I think at the time, Chris and Lori were looking for a design resource. And so instead of going into crowdsourcing or hiring somebody, they were like, we like what you guys are doing with design. Could you help us at that time? And we've worked on projects for years like that, on and off, depending on the need. But I met Lori, and everything was, at that time, no screen share, no video conferencing. I don't even think I knew what Lori looked like, to be honest with you. It was through emails and phone calls and conference calls. That's the way it was. Um, so we were working together and so forth. But there's two parts to the story. One, so I worked with Lori, let's say, for a year or two together, on and off on select things, and built this nice rapport with each other, and really, like, because at that time, I'm a kid. I'm in my middle 20s, and you don't know anybody other than your agency owner. I have no idea about the WSI network. And there's this lady in Montreal that's nice to me. I'm this kid, and she's actually nice to me, which was such a warming thing when you're anxious and you don't know who you are and who you work with. And again, until 2013, when I got to the first convention, and I've said this so many times like a broken record on the podcast, but Peter wanted me to go, and we were up for an award, but I said no because project manager Mike is like, I'm too busy. And he's like, you're coming. But he wanted me to see that it was bigger than just this little agency
Yeah.
in Toronto.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
so the
think that's
fun part,
important. Peter was right.
he was right. Like most things, I'm the one that always argues and complains, but he has the wisdom. But he wanted me to see there was something bigger behind all my efforts, bigger behind our agency. There were people that were smarter than us, and so forth. So I go to that and whatever. So the first one I went to was in Boca Raton. The only reason I went because he forced me to, but part of it was I was going to meet Chris and Lori. And I didn't know Chris as well as Lori at the time, just because we didn't interact as much because Lori and me are operations. But so we get down there and it's at this nice resort. At those days it wasn't like the all inclusives, but it was a really like Boca Raton resort or something. It was a really nice hotel. And so we get there after this travel. I haven't really been anywhere in ever. And so go down there and meet, and then coming around the corner are these two people, and Peter's like, Mike, Chris and Lori from WSUN's Montreal. So you get these handshakes and big hugs, but it's like, it was such a moment for me. It's like, finally, I get to meet you. And we spent most of those 2 days together. I was only there for a short time versus how we extend it now. And what's interesting about that is there's twofold. One, I'm going to make fun of myself, but I basically became like a Siamese attached to your hip because I like followed you around like a puppy dog because I didn't know anybody. You know, you're very intimidating going as an employee
I'm
in those
sure.
days because
Yep.
you had experienced agency owners. And then Peter, again, God love him, but he's like, I want you to be involved. He wanted to share that, which I appreciate so much. But in retrospect, it's like I'm this kid. It's like, hi, I'm Mike. I'm following my owner around. Who are you, buddy? What are you doing here? And Chris and Laurie were completely the opposite. They're like, come on. So in lulls where Peter at that time was speaking or doing something or had a Top Gun dinner, or just for example, Chris and Laurie are like, come to our hotel room and catch up with us and chat about operations and work and whatever. And obviously the social side of these conferences and being able to spend. So it's not a funny story, but it's such a great story of just how our friendship has evolved and transpired because you are the first people I met in WSI. And what two people to meet in the sense of kindness, openness to say, I don't care your age or who you are, but you're one of us. Come on in. And that has been a kind of a foundational point for me is you guys
Yeah.
and being those people for me of saying like you gave me a chance to to gain your friendship outside of being a colleague that just facilitates a project. And I will never forget that because not many have done that. Lots of people have been kind to me, but not like how you and Chris were. And I think that's just a testament to who you are and the other things that we've talked about in this podcast about longevity with clients, longevity with chambers and networking and sort of it's in your DNA just to be kind and nice to people. I
Yeah.
don't think you two have a bad bone in your body. You're not an asshole like me, that's for sure.
Mike, that meeting, that first meeting in Boca Raton is just something that I remember so vividly, and I'm not sure why, but
It's
from
the
day
disappointment when you saw me sitting next to Peter.
no, from day one, that we clicked, right?
We
There was
did.
something about it that I appreciated, your insights, and we've had lots of conversations about different technical things or process things or what have you, and I think we've actually helped improve each other in different aspects along the way because we have helped each other. And this is part of the beauty of what WSI is all about, right? Because there is so much sharing, but just having people like yourself, you're a smart guy, Mike. You are, you learn it, you know it, you are like us in terms of making sure that whatever you do, it's going to be good, right? You will go to the nth degree to make sure that everything is perfect. I'm not sure I'd want to work underneath you.
Hey, come on, I'm not that bad.
No, but
Very,
I get
very
it. No, but I know that if I'm, one of your clients, whatever you deliver, it's going to be top notch. And I appreciate that. And as I say, we've learned from each other in terms of we talked about the design process and that sort of thing.
And we built some cool stuff together, Lori. Like we've done some great design work together that has helped support WSI Montreal with confidence to submit for awards or People's Choice. That Boca Raton one, which we were thrilled about, and why I think it's so kind of monumental outside of the meeting was, we won a joint award together because we did the design on a project and you won an award for the project.
That's right.
So I get to meet you. We're at the same table together. Commandex get surprised that we win the People's Choice for that year in 13 for something like that. So that what a great first kind of thing to go to. And I've never won anything in my life. And Peter's, and again, I look at Peter, he's all excited and he's like, go. And I'm like, no, you're the owner, go. He goes, no. And he took me up on, again, you're like less than 30 years old and think that you're this small little project manager. And Peter's like, get up there. And then who do I look in the crowd? And the biggest people beaming is Chris and Laurie. Like I remember Chris, and I come back to the table, gives me this big slap on the shoulder and hug, and he says, "Proud of you, man." And it's like, but my point being is, remember that that means to someone who's still trying to figure out who they are and are they valuable and do they contribute and whatever. So like, such a huge moment. That's why I talk about that story, not in the details that we did it here, but I talk about some repetition because it was such a big thing for me to feel like you're part of the bigger picture, like you said. And that's what the WSI network is really about. It's not about winning awards. It's the relationships that you build because, like I said, we're going on 15, 16 plus years of knowing each other, friendship. Like you said, I just met with you and David a month ago to discuss your hosting environment solutions versus ours because we're always looking on how to improve. So to be able to have trusted people you can go to and get those insights, and also, like you said, complement each other. We know different things. You've come to me for something, or I've come to you for something, and it's never a let me figure out the time. It's like, when do you need me, and I'm there. And that's power because that's friendship. It's kind of like, if you need me, I'm there. I don't care the details. Just tell me where I need to be. And we've always been like that, the three of us, if you will.
That's very true. And, we've often had the opportunity to get together as a group. As some people might know, we have a Canadian group of ICs that we get together from time to time, maybe once a year or something like that. But we dig into the details, right? Because we're all of the same type of practice where we need to know how that works, what's coming down the pipe, what's the best practice, and we share that information. And that's been, I think, so valuable to all of us. It has helped us improve our business along the way. But knowledge sharing is so important. And hats off to you, my friend, because you are a huge share within the WSI network. And I know that there's a lot of appreciation from many other WSI ICs as well, and WSI head office. I think everyone understands the value that you bring because of your knowledge. Hats off to you.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Let's see what happens when you send a check to Quebec that says, say something nice about me. If I would have sent it to Chris Murray, he already would have cashed it and he probably would have slaughtered me still. But that's why I got Laurie on instead of Chris. But it's funny you mentioned about Boca because, again, many conventions, many things blur together over the years. Same,
Yeah,
I don't remember all of them,
yeah.
but I remember exactly the moment meeting you and Chris. Like, and I'm so kind of enamored that you do as well. Like, I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly the corner. I remember exactly where
Totally.
we met, and it was just
And
I
the
was
plans?
excited.
Yes.
It was like, I'm Laurie. I'm like, Laurie, a big hug coming. Who's this clown coming at me? But you guys have just been, oh, and again, the next 5 years, whenever they had conventions, and they were more local at that time, Toronto, Montreal, some in the States and so forth. But any of the ones that I was able to go to or Peter allowed me to go to, depending on where the agency was, I pinned myself to you guys. And I sometimes thought in my own insecurities, I'm like, these two must just hate me because it's like, God, this chum is just, dun 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 dun, dun following us around. But it was because you were my people. And I wanted to be with you, and you just never gave me that kind of cross-eyed, like, get out of here, buddy. You're annoying the shit out of me. And I can't compliment you and Chris enough. I will never forget that. It's just one of those moments where I felt accepted outside of my own little agency. And that's why I'm so pleased you're here chatting with me and as we work to wrap up here and so forth. But we have so many good stories in different ways. It's usually you sitting back because you're the much classier kind of reserve, having your glass of wine, watching the stupidity of me and Chris, because like anything, get two men together, it's like man children just trying to one up each other of F you this and you're an idiot that and whatever else. But um you know, you guys are
Down
special.
deep, but down deep, there is so much synergy and respect amongst you and Chris and
Yeah.
us. That's
And
what's
I
that's
and
what's
I and I
important.
know he knows that, even
Yes.
though, Chris will express himself in his own ways when he does. But I wouldn't go at Chris the way I do in our little bubble or when I see him or whatever else if he if I didn't know he knew how much I respect him, because it's not
Okay.
malicious. It's same with
Yes.
Jack. That whole
Exactly.
banter with me and Jack, everybody thinks we hate each other. It's complete opposite. I love him. I will go to war for Chris Murray if whenever he needs me, because he's one of those. He's probably one of the kindest men I know, just in the sense of giving, and always making sure somebody else is taken care of and planning for somebody else. That's just how he's wired. And again, I can't say enough about you two in that regard. But um, you also made just a really good point about our group, and I think maybe this is a neat way to kind of wrap up. Is again, it's not a big story, but we were very blessed to get together after some time. We saw each other a handful of months ago. I want to say late November, early December, and this time we went up to Ottawa. Mark Jameson, our friend, was very kind to give us space at his office, and like you said, we had some great sessions where we really get in there with some really smart minds and collaborate and make and push each other to get better. But my point being is, the first night, so we get there, everybody gets there based on travel. We have a great couple of hours, but it's more, some people aren't there, some people aren't as integrated in the day-to-days anymore, and they're coming more for the social. I'm talking like Jason and Denise Gervais. My Peter, like you said, he wants to be on certain things and sort of, but so Mark plans us to go to a pool hall to have a supper, like a pub supper and pool. My point being is, you want to talk about friendships and talk about the camaraderie of finding your people. Um, I'm sitting at the table waiting for people to come in, a little reserve and stuff. But Laurie and Chris, we walk over there. Jason and Dee's coming, but I'm watching our group, and there's not handshakes and slap on the shoulder. Hey, buddy, we're talking hugs and kisses. How is the family? Denise just had a baby. Let's see
Yes.
photos. Jason and Denise Gervais are very removed from their agency now, but the friendships for 20 plus years, and I'm just sitting there, and I had one of those moments because, like, my wife, Missy, always says, "You're never present." She can tell. She's very good at analyzing people. She goes, "You're never present." But that was a moment I was present, where everything slowed down. And I'm just watching my people, observing, and I'm saying,
Yeah.
this is special.
Yeah.
This is more than work. Work is the commonality, but there are people in this group that care about each other.
Very much so.
And that is again another one of the greatest gifts, is being allowed to be part of that group with you agency owners. It is a private group, and we protect that because it's more than just WSI. We care about the families. We've been to each other's homes in select situations. There's more there. If there's health issues, if there is challenges in work, that is our safe space. And it was just such a moment for me on this one, because we've been doing this for a handful of years now, and all of them have been different, and they all been great. But this one, maybe just because more time had gone by,
Yeah.
just that reflection for me was like, I just sat there and I'm just like, that was a moment for me. I'm just like, this is pretty cool. And everybody's getting older, and people are starting to change their focus
Some
on
of
where
us.
they are in their businesses. But those friendships are going to last a long time, more than WSI. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah. We're very similar in many ways. We're obviously in the same business, technology wise, but business owners, all very driven and a lot of A type personalities, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to certain racing car activities that we might have done in the past as well, which was so obvious that every one of you guys were the
I
A
forgot.
type.
I don't know how I could forget about that, but maybe if you allow me a few more minutes after you get
Yes.
your thought on, I got to share that, because that's
Yep.
a pretty funny story.
Yep.
Because you, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I've shared it. You go ahead.
All right. So this is a good one to wrap up on, because this really shows you that you can be very successful A-type personalities, but children at heart. So
Yes.
we go to Montreal for the time that we get together. We like to do this once or twice a year, depending on how the calendar rolls. And it was easier back in the day, but now we make it work. Anyways, go to Montreal. Again, another thing about Chris Murray is he is a planner. I have
Yeah.
never seen a man take more enjoyment in planning an itinerary of anything. And if you do talk to Chris, between what he does with scouts, what he does with his own friends in the sense of wilderness treks where they go out with their canoes, literally like survival for
Yes.
like 2 weeks. Like, he is an avid outdoorsman, but he loves to
Whitewater
plan.
canoeing.
Water canoeing, thank you. But he absolutely loves to plan. So anytime you want something planned, go to Chris Murray.
Yeah. And he's a hell of a travel agent, too.
Yeah. Like we'll be like, hey, we're thinking about going to like Montreal in like 9 months from now. And like the next day he's like, here's 4 locations, here's 5 venues, here's the pricing, and we're just like, go, Chris. He's brilliant. Anyways, so Chris plans a nice couple of days with Laurie and us, and the final night he takes us to go indoor go-karting on electric go-karts. And
Mhm.
go-karting is fun no matter how old you are, but we got there. What I didn't know, okay, because Peter sat this one out because at the time his knees were really by Mike. He's like, I don't think I can get in this go-kart. So I squeezed my fat ass into a go-kart. Murray gets in a go-kart. But the one thing you have to remember about Chris Murray is you put a competition in front of that man, and he might take your firstborn child with him because he is uber competitive. I've seen him at ping pong competitions at WSI. That
Yes.
he's flying over tables, he's knocking people out, he's throwing paddle. Well, he doesn't do any of that, but he's focused and he likes to try to win and he wants to make it competitive. So we're out there and we're racing and so forth. And doesn't Mike over here win the fastest lap on the first race? Chris ain't happy about this. He's looking at the numbers. He's like, how are you 0.05 seconds ahead of me and this and that? So the next one comes around. And if I remember correctly, he won the second one because he was getting better with each race. And I came behind him. So we got this battle chirping. Then you got Jason Gervais. Jason doesn't care if he wins. I don't even think he cares that he was racing. But Jason's in the line. And like there's signs everywhere that says, do not bump each other.
Yes.
Do not hit each other. I'm
Yes.
not even out of the on-ramp. And he just dropped the pedal and just plows into the back of me. My head snaps back. I'm like, what the hell? Jason's giggling behind me. Jason
Yep.
is a 50-year-old man
Yes.
giggling because it's so, and then I can hear Murray on the track. I'm going to get you, Mike. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. So we are just bumping and grinding. And I'm talking like we had David Makowski there that time with Lynn. Remember they came to the Montreal one and David's out there and he's like, you guys are insane. He goes, you guys are really like, this and that. And then let's not pull punches. Mark Jameson's out there and he's a menace too.
Yes. All of you were the A-type personality, kids at heart. I have never seen so many driven people all trying to compete against each other. It's like, I'm getting out of this way here.
We're really sweating after races. Like my hands are sore gripping the wheel and what else because I got to beat Murray. I don't care about anybody else. I got to beat Murray because he's got the challenge out there. But I go into turn 1. I come around the corner. I look out of my peripheral vision and here comes Jameson and he isn't turning. He's got a smile on his face and probably a couple of cocktails in him, but he goes right into me. And I'm talking like I was sore through my rib cage for like the next 3 days. And it says no bumping, no hitting. And I don't give a shit. And then so I get bumped. I got a really good laugh. He hits me. I'm like, you son of a bitch. And then I see Murray fly by and he's laughing at me. So the best point about this is, again, you got men of all different ages, A-type personalities, extremely competitive, and children. And then on top of that, they do a podium photo and everything of us where I'm still beaking Murray. The best part about it is Murray goes home and puts his like silver medal on the fireplace of your home.
On the mantle, of
On
course.
the mantle, proud.
Absolutely.
And this is your husband. This is the best part. And you're just sitting there quietly going like, I'm just going to let it happen. I've been married long enough. I know just to stay in my, it's not worth. And then she like looks at Denise because Denise got put into the tires by Mark and was not happy.
That is right.
Denise is one of the nicest people. But I come through like turn 4 and I see they got like a forklift out there to pull her out. That's how deep under the tires she is. And the look on her face.
She was not happy.
She was not happy. That's Mark. And Mark and Denise have a tremendous relationship.
Yes.
So go-karting may have to sign a waiver inside your own friendship circle that friends may be gone after the races. And number 2, don't ever challenge Chris Murray to anything because it doesn't matter how old he is. It doesn't matter how mature he wants to be. He is going to fight to the death to try to win. And now every time I see him, I'm like, hey, Murray, I'm like, we can go go-karting if you want. Anytime you want to pop up, buddy. And he's like, when do you want to go? Right now? But that's why as in one of my early songs that I put you in because I thought because the first version of that was really crass against Murray. I didn't want to do that because I don't have a lot of friends, and I changed it. But that's why you, Laurie, are the Quebec OG, and you are also Chris Murray's forever pursuit, even though he has you. But that's the way you guys are, and you have a beautiful relationship as a couple. You have a beautiful relationship in the sense of how you navigate WSI Montreal. And that's why truly you are two of my utmost favorite people in WSI. And I am so fortunate to call you my friends. And that's not something that is normal in business because people come and go. There's a lot of colleagues, but friendship, is something that we will have till you guys choose to retire, and whatever that means for you at that stage of your life. And I know that we're going to continue to chat because we've got a great history together, and it's only just starting, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. I very much have appreciated your friendship over the many years. It will continue. You're such a great resource, such a great friend, and the fact that we are able to sort of rely upon each other is just an awesome thing. You know, we just have to pick up the phone or give you a ring or what have you. It's a great relationship, and here's to us.
You ever need me, I am a phone call or an email away, and I will be there. Absolutely.
You bet.
All right, Lori, we got to get out of here because it's after hours, and you got to get home and tell Murray all about your thrilling podcast with Mike G. So, I know you're not a huge social media person, but always want to give guests, where can they find you on LinkedIn? Obviously, the WSI Montreal website. So, any plugs based on where people can find and connect with you?
Absolutely. Anybody can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, certainly on Facebook. I'm around. Not at, well, technically I'm on TikTok, but the other LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach out to me.
So look for Laurie McCullagh on LinkedIn. Also, even though he's not here, Chris Murray, her partner in crime, and also WSI Montreal, one of the most tenured agencies in the WSI network, and really great people. Make sure you see them at convention when we get to Cabo in June.
Right.
So the Angry Ops Guy podcast, you can find us on YouTube, Instagram. What else are we on? LinkedIn. I don't even know anymore. So Angry Ops Guy _WSI. More episodes, more great guests coming. And I just really want to thank you very much for coming on and spending some time catching up with me, Laurie. It's been wonderful to see you for more than 10 minutes, knowing how much we got going on.
Thank you, Mike. I've enjoyed it, and I'll try and convince Chris to join you on one of your future episodes.
You hear that, Murray? I'm coming for you, and it's not going to be as polite and gracious as I was with Laurie. I'm going to slaughter you, bro. See you, Laurie.